Hello, everybody. Welcome to another live session. So we'll be picking up from where we stopped last week with our goal of trying to analyze a data set of books. We started out scraping our data set and scraping the website, and then we'll go ahead and perform some analysis, do some data cleaning, perform some analysis, and come up with some form of report from that data. Okay, so before we go on, I want to ask how many of us got the chance to walk through the rest of the pages of data that I asked us to scrape. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, so how many of us got the chance to walk through it? You made an attempt and you had issues at some point. Anybody? Okay, so what's the challenge? Is it difficult? What's the challenge so that we know how we move from here? You're all staying mute. Is anybody talking? If anybody's talking, you're muted. Mercy, do they have the opportunity to unmute themselves? All right, then I think I'll just move
No, I'm
straight
not
into
typing that they do. I want to see. I think they do. They do have the opportunity to use themselves.
Okay, so I'm guessing, is somebody trying to say something?
Yes. So I've actually not been able to do that because I've been trying to follow what we have been doing before. The thing is not familiar concept. So I'm still trying to, I have had to do some other, like go on YouTube to check for other videos to do, but I've not been able to do the remaining 49 pages you said we should do. I hope I'll be able to before, maybe by this weekend.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, just now.
All right, okay. So, okay, yes, I understand that this is not like probably something that you're used to. That's why we're learning. So, but the idea is that after we've gone through like a live coding session, we expect that you would go through what we did in that session, and then so that you can have questions in the next class and we can address those questions. That's why we have this live coding session. But it's okay. I'm still going to, because we need the full data set. So I'm going to walk through getting the rest of the pages and then we'll do some cleaning and start our exploratory data analysis. All right. Did anybody else walk through it? Does anybody else have anything to share?
Yeah, so very good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, so the issue I navigated was like I had issue navigating the trees because what I tried to do was that I tried using the link for the next page to access or to access like each page. So where I had the issue now is that I know after the next page, there's still going to be another next page. So that is where I just got stuck down, couldn't move forward.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Okay, we'll walk through it. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Can you see my web page open on their notebook? Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, that is true. Yes,
All
we
right,
can.
so we want to basically scrape the rest of the pages. What we've done, we've taken care of pulling the links from this page and going through each of the books, right? And pulling the details. So to take care of the pages, you have this link here next. You can, there are a couple of ways to do this, right? You can try to get the details of this next element. And you can always try to get the details of the next element every time you go to a new page, right? And so that'll be like you're trying to get the link from here. So because basically, let me close this and go back here. Basically, this is a link, this is a clickable, this is a button, right? So we can click this and we'll get redirected to another page, right? So, but I want to inspect the elements. I can always get the link, right? So I can get the link that's supposed to take me to the next page by always clicking the next button on every page. I think that's what so, the last person was talking about, right? That you know that there's always going to be a next page, but you don't know how to end, right? You can always click the next page until, let's see what happens on this particular page, because these things are usually, okay. Let me just go ahead and do this. Hey, so in this case, there's no next page, right? So you would just iterate to always find the next page until you get to the page where there is no next page, because there's no next button here. So that just means that that's the end of the next page. Or you can look for patterns. There is a pattern to the paging, right? That's a much easier way to go about this. There's a pattern to the paging. So if I go back, let's say to page 2, let's go to a previous page. So here we have page 1. The way that this works, let me just copy this and put it in our notebook. And then I navigate to the next page. All right, I'm on page 2 of 50. And what happens, there's also a page 2. So I'll copy this because I want to show us that there's a pattern to it. And if you saw what I did initially, I just went in and I repeated 49 instead of 2. So there's actually a pattern to everything else changes apart from so all you need to do is just change the page number and you have the page that you want. So with this pattern in mind now, what you need to know now is how many pages does this website have? And already we are told that it's 1 out of 50 pages, right? So we can simply just customize our stuff and say, okay, for 1 in 50, look through 1 to 50 and get the details from each of these pages. So that's what we do. We already have our remember the process. I don't need to walk through this. You already know we got the full links here. We have downloading data and getting the data at this point, right? Then this is where we append the data. So at this point, right, where we are getting the data for a particular page, you can go ahead and say, okay, for linking full links, let me bring this together. Okay, so let's say I have this that first of all downloads the data. Okay, let's copy this as well. Let's just turn this into a function so that we can walk through this. So the first point here is the base URL. The second point is where we try to get the links, and then initializing our data list, right? And then downloading the data for each link, right? This was just a proof of concept that we did initially. So, but then looping through each of the link in the full links, and then we download the data and get the data details into this list. So let's turn this into a function of its own, just to make things neat a bit. So what can we call this? Let's see, script page. Let's call it script page. Let's not give it any parameter for now, arguments rather for now. And then, so we have a base URL, and then we have the full links equals to this and all of that and all of that. So what we really want to do at this point is we want to be able to say want to loop through this. This is what we have, right? And then we want to say, we want to loop through from 1 to 50. Okay. So while I have my base URL here, let me do this outside of the function so that we can see how that would work. So first of all, I'll put this in a string. And then I'll use string formatting so that I can always put this as a variable, right? Yeah, what's going on? Okay, so I've just defined a page and I've put this formatted the string so that in a way that allows me to like use a variable that can change at any point. So this just means that at every point when this URL is going to be processed, the value of page is going to be put in here, right? So that's what's going on. And so if at any point I say page, or let's say for page in a range of numbers, let's say 1 to 20, I want to print URL. Yeah, I want to print URL. First of all, I have to define this. This was defined in the global scope, I have to define this within the loop, right? So that it knows to replace this at this point. Leaving it here doesn't work, okay? So with this now, it knows that, okay, you want it to replace page at this point as opposed to this point. Okay, at this point, you have already defined page as a global variable, but in here, it knows that, okay, the page that you want to replace here is contained within this loop, right? So that's what's happening here. And then we see that we are able to get each of the page numbers that we want. So what we just need at this point is to be able to call our whole scraping function to take care of this URL. And so we will modularizing this code. We need to be able to pass in a URL as an argument to this function so that we can tell it, okay, as you've gotten this URL, go ahead and scrape our data. But the first thing, remember, we need to go to the very top where we did request and we did beautiful soup passing. So we will get this. Okay. Because this was the very first point we started from. Don't forget, first thing we did, we had to send a request to the URL, right, to the server, right, to this website via this URL, sent a request, and we got a request response. I don't want to rewrite code, but then it could be helpful. I'll just comment this. So first thing we did, remember, was to send a GET request for the server to send us a response. And then next thing we can do is check if the status code of the response that was sent is equals to 200, which means that it was successful. Then we can go ahead and this will all be part of what we are doing. But first, we need to pass it to Beautiful Soup. So after sending a request, confirming our request is successful, we pass the HTML code in Beautiful Soup. And then next thing we do is, we try to figure out the tags to get these links that want to script. So I'll just copy, I'm going to copy that one, figure out where we did that, and then copy it. So this is where we did that. We did soup.find all article. It was contained in the article elements. I'll go back here just to refresh our memory. So yeah, see this in the article elements. I don't want to waste too much time on this. So I'll just copy that. And another thing we did was to, let's see. Yes, we got the links by looking for the A elements. So within the article, within articles that have a class product pod, we looked for the A elements that were children of that article element. And then we got the href attributes, which gave us the link. And that's when we proceeded to the rest of our code that you see here, where what we did was now to use the base URL plus the link that we got here to walk through the rest of them. Okay, so now we can parameterize this URL such that, because this is what is of importance to us, right? This is the starting page, right? But we want to be able to look through all the pages, okay? So if we leave this functionality, this will still just give us the, at the end of the day, we want to, sorry, if we want to, let me add a return statement first. We want to return our data, okay? So this will still just give us, this will do everything it's doing and give us like the data from one page. We don't want that. We want a situation where it will look through everything. Okay, so now we're going to do this. This page 1 is same as an index page, in case you have not noticed. Let me close this and just show us. So it's same as our index page 1 to 20. So we'll just work with this. This is an F string so that we can decide to put a page here. Oh, I wanted to move this to a variable of its own, sorry. So I'll just move this to a variable of its own. It's a lot easier to deal with that way. And then we'll just make this URL, okay? So now we need to pass in the page as an argument to this function. And this way we are now ready to work with what we have. So what we're going to do now is loop through each of the pages here. So I'm just going to say for now a bit of, we need to make sure that what we are getting, remember at the end of the day, we want the whole data set. So at this point, it is getting, it initializes a list where it's supposed to store the data and it returns that list. Now we want to ensure that we are able to collate everything that will be coming from this function. So we can decide to call it our what's data set, let's say, or books. Yeah, books is a more appropriate name. And then we already know that what is coming, the object that will be returned from this function is going to be a list, right? So we are just going to say books. Okay. So we can run that and see. Yeah, we didn't define our function. Let's run that and see what we have. I feel the need to interrupt this, yes, at some point. Okay, so now this is going to show us some very important things to input whenever we are running whenever we're writing web scraping code, because the behavior of websites is kind of like unpredictable in a way. Sometimes what is available on one web page might not be available on another web page. So one thing we can do is try to track the pages that are running per time. So if I want to debug this, non-type object has no attribute text. First thing I would do is try to figure out, okay, what page was running at that time and how can I figure out like what is giving an error. So I'm going to print I use f strings for this as well. So I'm just going to say so. So we have it scraping page 1, and upon scraping page 1, we see an error. All right, so let's figure out why we have an error on page 1. At the point where it's finding class price column. Let's see. Because we're scraping, first thing we're doing is we're scraping multiple, we're getting the links from multiple websites, collating it into a list, this full links list. And then still within the same function, we are going ahead to scrape the data from each of the links. So it will be useful to know, okay, so what link is giving us the issue that we're currently having? That's one way to debug this. So I'm going to use another print statement and then try to do let's just leave that for now. Try to print out link. So probably call this processing. Oh yeah, that's true. Okay. So there's an interesting error here. So, okay. Plus link for linking links. First things first, this link. So probably the link is not what's the word? It's giving us a 404 error, which means that the way that we got this link is probably not correct. So I'm going to try and figure out where the issue is from this. So what I did was to figure out the link, and I'm now comparing the two so we can see where the issue is. And we can see that there's a missing catalog here that should be available. So we'll just include that here, catalog. And see what that does for us. Okay, so this can be further separated. I would say that I will not be doing that in this class, but I would suggest that you try it out. You can further break this down in such a way that you get all the links from all the pages first, right? Before you go ahead. So you don't have a situation where you're saying scraping page 1 and then it's going ahead to process the link and get the data first. You can loop through all the pages, get all the links first, store it in a list, and then go ahead and apply the page processing part of the script. So I would suggest that we try that. That's a better approach to this. So I would suggest that as you practice this, you should try to come up with that alternative approach on your own. So I will not look through all these pages because that's going to take a lot of time. So, but this was a way to show you how to do it. You've also seen me make mistakes, and you've seen how I would typically debug errors when I encounter them. So what I would do is I would stop at, let's say, page 10. I'll just get this to get us to page 10 is a lot, so let's do 5. Let's do 5 pages. How many pages do we have per page? How many links do we have per page? So while we wait, okay, 20 links. While we wait for this, do we have any questions about what we've just done? Do we have any questions, guys, about what we've just done? Hello, can anybody hear me? Hello, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, so do we have any questions or is it clear what we've done so far? The silence is disturbing me. Should I be worried? Well, I should probably call names. So Hassan, is what we've done so far clear to you? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, for now, I don't have any question. I'll have to into the question slide. Because I'm currently on the
Okay. So please, guys, feel free to ask questions if you have any. All right. I think we're all done. and I can take a look at books. And it's working as expected. We're expecting 40 books because 20 books per page. So when I limited it to 2 pages because we don't have time to waste. So let's go ahead and do some data cleaning. And the next step after scraping your data is typically some data cleaning, right? So convert convert our books to a data frame. Inspect our columns, and then replace the data column. So yeah, as at our last class, we had a little issue with the naming of the function. So it's actually rename as opposed to replace, right? So basically define the column that you want to work with, and then use the rename function, and then it does the job. So what I did here is I'm mapping the current column here. Turn this into lowercase. I can also decide that I would like to replace white space here with underscore. So I can do replace white space with underscore. So now if I do this, I should be able to see a better looking. Yes. So where I have underscores taken care of, and this is what we have at this point. So that's one way to. Now, for the various other cleanings that we're going to be doing, let me clean this up. Let's look at our data set. First thing you want to do whenever you're working with a data that is not like clean from the start. I mean, already, if you're scraping data, just know that it will not be clean from the start, because there will definitely be some things that you need to take care of. So you want to inspect and figure out, okay, what do I need to take care of here? We've seen the price, we've seen the journey from January, right? We've seen the ratings. So I'll just make a list here of what we can do. We can convert our price to numeric values. How do I know it's not numeric at this point? I mean, obviously because of the presence of this characters, right? They are non-numeric characters. And then we want to take away this doesn't look good. We want to take away the new lines from that. And then for ratings, we want to convert our ratings to, let's say, we want to map them to numbers, right? Then for UPC, it's okay to drop columns. I don't think that UPC has any value to us, but how would we know if we don't do some like exploratory analysis, right? So one way we can do this is just going to create another column. We can do a value count here and see, okay, so is this UPC thing unique, or does this like bear any relationship to any other column here? So let's see. Okay, so we can see that it's pretty much unique. So it doesn't do much for us, except let's say we wanted to store this in a database, then maybe we could have considered it as like a as an index, a primary key or something, an ID, right, that we want to work with, but that's not what we are doing. So we can drop this. So first things, let's drop So what this does is it drops the column that we want to drop, because you have to specify the axis, otherwise it will try to look for whatever value you passed in here among the indexes, right? Among the index. So you have to specify that no, you're not looking row wise, right? You're looking column wise. You can either specify column, you can specify one, right? So, but then this, we need to either assign this to a variable df, or we need to do this in place. So in place equals to true. And that way, if we do df head, we will not see UPC anymore. All right, so next, first thing we've done is we've dropped our UPC column. Now, next thing we want to do, like, look at number of reviews, right? It's looking a little weird. So like, let's see, what are the unique values in there, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I should specify the number. Okay, so we have 0. There's no, that's all the unique values we have. So that's a column that we can also drop. All right, so run this again. And okay, it's taking shape slowly. So we can clean up this January, right? So let's do that. So we want to replace the new lines. We can we want to take care of the new lines. We can either do that by this. So this way, strip will take care of the new lines or white space at the front and at the back, right? Like at the start of our string and at the end of our string. So that's what's happening here. By using the strip function that we need to specify that the value contained in the series is actually a string. So this is what this does, but it has not taken effect on our data frame. So you need to remember to set it to our data frame. Set it to the particular column we're working with, okay? So now if we run this, so it's looking good, right? So the next thing we want to take care of is the price. Okay, we want to get rid of these characters that we have in the pricing. So I can just do a df replace price. I don't want to replace it with anything. I just want it gone. And then I do the same thing. I'm just going to copy and paste this and just change this as well. Okay, I want to make my work a lot easier. So let me set this to price first. Then go ahead and copy and paste. So we'll need to do this as well, replace this as well. All right, so we can go ahead and run this. And if we run this again to inspect our, okay, so what's happening? Okay, need to specify that this is working on a string. So with that now, oh, I didn't notice tags, so we need to take care of tags as well. We can just copy this, and paste that, and then have tags taken care of. Okay. So I think we're almost at a good point. It's a good time to inspect the data types that we currently all our data types are objects. Basically, like this is like a string in Python data type, right? So all our data types are actually objects, and we want to convert this to a numeric value, convert our prices to numeric values. So we'll just do df. There are a couple of ways that we can do that. We can either use df pandas numeric to numeric rather, and then specify the series that we want to convert. So that's what you have, or you can call the series itself. And then as type float, because these numbers are decimal numbers, so I'm going to convert them to float, right? So I can do either one, and that should give me what I want. So we go ahead with the second option. So that I can do the same thing for the rest of the values. All right, so we can go ahead and run this, and what's the error we're getting? Okay. So if I run this again, we should have our change has taken place, okay? Our price has changed, okay, so last thing we want to do before we end this call is we want to change the ratings. Let's see. Yeah, let's change the ratings. So one thing that we can do is we can use the apply function to do this, right? We want to map, let's say, 1 to 3, and then 3 to But one thing that we should do first, right, is let's see. One thing we want to do first is know how many values are in here, like is it unique and all that. So we have we basically have 1 to 5, right? So let's go ahead and either do so first, to be able to use this is a function that allows us to like apply a function to this is an overkill, but then let me show you a use case for this. So allows us to apply a function to a column in our data frame. So I'm going to define the function first of all, right? So let me just say convert to so let's say we have I'm going to explain what I'm doing when I'm done. Okay. So in this case, we are basically saying we've defined a mapping of 1 to 2 to 2 and all of that. And we are saying, okay, when a norm is passed here, return the mapping, like the value of whatever key that will correspond with this, right? So let's call it here. Okay, so now we have our mapping. So like I said, this function is basically just from from the word, right, to the actual number, and then we do. But then we have not assigned it to our rating. So remember, you always have to assign whatever you are doing back to the column you are working with. So if we go back here, so that's one way that we can apply our lambda, right? You can use this apply function, define our function here, and then it would apply it to each row within our series, right? So it will pick the element. A series is made up of just one column. So basically, it's a single cell. It will pick it and apply the function to it. So that's what is happening here. One other thing that we can do is, I want to take a look at, so I wanted to point this out that this changed as well. So Pandas was able to quickly detect that, okay, that this has changed from whatever, from a string to like a numeric data type. So another thing too we want to do is split this in availability. We can either decide to split it, or we can decide to remove in stock. So, but I'm curious to see, do we have one thing you want to do? I hope like from the process that we're going through, right? You don't just take actions without inspecting your data set and understanding the data set. For you to clean effectively, oh my dear, my time, okay. I don't think, I just need to wrap up with availability, even though our time is up. So I was saying that one thing that you need to do, you must make sure that you do while cleaning, is that you understand your data set. Otherwise, you'll be getting rid of valuable points in your data set, valuable data points within your data set. So it's important to understand your data sets, do some inspection of the data before you go ahead and say, okay, I don't need this, I don't need this, and then you get rid of it. So in this case, availability, right? So we're going to take a look at availability and just try to understand it. So I want to understand the unique values in there. So, okay, I really wanted to see if there were any ones that were like out of stock. So with all of this in stock, right? We can decide, okay, would rather change the column name from availability to probably rather like define a new column or something and say, okay, let's have number of books in stock, something like that. We want to know number of books in stock, right? And then we now define books in stock. Or better still, you can do stock count. So we can a couple of things that we can do to take care of this. We can decide, okay, to split it at the occurrence of the parenthesis, the first parenthesis, and then pick the first two values, right? There are a couple of, the thing about pandas and the thing with like having a programming language is like you have different different routes to getting stuff done. So the way I would just do this now is I would probably just split it by the occurrence of the first parenthesis and pick the first two values. So this is what happens if I split it by the occurrence of the parentheses. Okay. Oh wow. I don't want to define it yet. So let's keep that. We can always replace it. So now this is what we have, right? So what I can do is I can go ahead and say that after splitting this, we want to pick the first element in there, the first two elements in there, right? Or I found a better route and I would let's split it by this, right? And this way we can now pick 1, 2, 3. So I want to show you a method within split that can help us. So we can call expand. Expand is equals to true, right? Expand is a method within this that will allow us to, so if we have, in this case, these things are not useful to us, right? These things are not useful to us. So we have 1, 2, 3. How many values within our list do we have after doing a split? 1, 2, 3, 4. So, but all 4 of these are not useful to us. But in a situation where it was useful to, like, it would be useful to us, and we just want to get what we splitted into 2 separate columns, 3 separate, whatever the case, you can use expand, right? But in this case, I think I might just have to opt for a lambda, right? Define my own custom function. Just work with this. You can use regex for this, but I mean, let's try regex too. So, okay. Okay, I want us to pull it out as opposed to figuring out if the number is there. I really want us to stick with pandas function. So I'm trying to come up with a function. In the meantime, a function that we can use for this. Okay. So we'll just define our custom function at this point. Let's pick value, right, that we want. So we'll pass in our string, and then we can do string dot replace, we can do a string dot split. This function is useful if you want to probably check out for if a value, this is regex. As you progress, if you're not used to Python, as you progress, you're going to learn more about this. It's very useful for figuring out patterns within like strings and all of that. But it's not particularly helpful in this use case because we don't really want to know if the string contains a number or not. We want to actually extract out that number. So I'll just stick with defining a function. So at this point, let's do this. Let's do a string dot split like we were doing before on our this. And then when we do that, we want to pick the first 2 values, right? So we want to pick the first 2 values. And let's see what that gives us. So if I pull this, and then I apply what we have worked with here. So we split it by this. We split it by this, and we want to pick the second value, right? And then we also want to pick the first 2. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Should be 1, sorry. So yes, and then we go ahead and pick. Okay. In that case, it's going to be 2, right? So I hope you understand what I've done here. I've splitted it by this. I've selected the second. And then at this point, I've selected the second item in the list, which of course, when you know the numbering of items 0, 1, 2, and all of that. And then I go ahead to specify the slicing, right? The range I want to select. So of course, you also know that the last number will not be included, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. And this is what we have. So I can just copy this and replace this with that. I can even go ahead and say, make this an integer. And I can go ahead and say, return this. So I can then go ahead and apply this. What do we want to call it? We wanted to call it stock number. Then we're applying it to availability. That's what we're applying it to. And then the function is called, and let's run that to define our function. So we have what we have here. We can decide to just, oh wow, it should be stock count as opposed to stock number, stock count. And then we can drop columns that we don't want. I think drop allows you to specify a list of availability as well. In place equals to true. And then we should specify the axis. And then it should be good to go with only the columns that we want to keep. Let's see one more thing before I end the class. This has turned out to be longer than I expected. One more thing before I end the class, so that by the next time we come, we are starting off with a clean data set and we'll just proceed with our analysis. So we will take a look at tax. And then we'll drop tax, right? So we are good. I've been able to show you how to use several functions to clean your data set. There are also some other functions within pandas that you can use. But then if you don't know those functions, you can, like me, always create your custom functions. Sometimes prefer to create custom functions if you're not like, if you don't remember the functions that you want to work with. Create custom functions and use apply. I mean, this works when you don't have a large data set. If you have a large data set, you might want to work with pandas functions because those are more optimized to take care of. Those are optimized to take care of like large data sets and cleaning and all of that within data sets. So this is where we'll be ending the class for today. Do we have any questions? In our next class, I'm just going to save this to data to a CSV file so that for our next class, it will be readily available for analysis. So let's call these books CSV. All right. So do we have any questions?
Yeah, good evening, ma.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, please, for our tag along code, that's the mini project we are doing. Which website are we to script?
It's not specified like that you're to script a particular website. You're to come up with a website to script.
All right, ma. Thank you.
Yeah. So just check for websites of interest, things that interest you, websites that are open for scripting, and then just do that. So I would also really suggest that you look out, because for this class and for the scope of this internship, we've only covered static sites, right? So sites that are not dynamic. For dynamic sites, it takes a different like approach to scraping them. So this will not work for dynamic sites. So when you pick a website to scrape, in essence, what I'm saying is when you pick a website to scrape, confirm that when you scrape it, the content you are getting is actually the content on the website. On dynamic websites, that's usually not the case. But for static websites like this one, it's the case, okay? So that's what you should look out for. Whatever website you finally decide to settle on, make sure that what you're scraping, the data you get when you scrape, is the same as the data that appears on the website. Okay.
All right,
Any
ma.
other questions? All right. Any other questions, please? All right. So in the absence of any other questions, we'll be ending the class here. Please go ahead and run this for the full pages. Drop the link to the CSV file in the Slack channel so that we can use it for our next class. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely evening.